Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The kick-ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the host and guest and are not necessarily supported by WPSC 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling the show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. And for those of you who are long-time listeners, hearing that opening theme would be a throwback for you. Because you know we used that for many years as the opening of the Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. And then we moved away from that and I started playing cuts from my original CD in the background. But this morning I decided, you know what, I was going to go back down memory lane and open it up with Stanley Clarke with Justice's Groove. So that's what you hear going on in the background. Believe it or not, it is Saturday once again, and we are indeed on the air one more time. And we are thrilled, and as those can say, even though it is improper grammar, we are happy, glad that we have another opportunity to be here with you. I wasn't with you last Saturday. It was the holiday. I decided to take the holiday weekend, so I was not with you, but I am thrilled to be back with you again this morning. My guest is already on the line. I'm always extra glad when the guest calls in on time and waiting in the wings. That just takes away any of the nerves that I might have of, is the guest going to call? Is he or she not going to call? When they call on time and they're there. So my guest is there, so I'm excited. We're going to go ahead with our normal ritual and routine, which is I'm going to give you the weather. Then I'm going to read from two books. I'm going to introduce my guests. We're going to share some information with you with a public service announcement, and then we will resume with our interview in, for the most part, that particular order. Again, if you're not sure who you're listening to, this is your host, Marc Medley, and the show is The Reading Circle, and we're on gobrave.org, heard all around the world, and here on FM radio in the northern New Jersey area on WP 88.7 FM. So let's see what's going on in the weather in the Wayne, New Jersey area. Right now, we are at 64.6 degrees already. That's a beautiful thing because I love heat. Expected to be cloudy. A stray shower, a thunderstorm is possible. High of 84, low of 63. Mostly cloudy with showers and a few thunderstorms tonight. And then on tomorrow, Sunday, thunderstorms likely. A few storms may be severe. High near 75, low of 63. Thunderstorms during the evening, then partly cloudy overnight. On Monday, mostly sunny skies, high around 85. And then we're going to have clear skies on Monday night. Looks like we're going to move down to 62 degrees during Monday night. Tuesday, partly cloudy skies, high of 83, low of 56. Mostly clear skies Tuesday night. And then on Wednesday, expect showers in the morning, then partly cloudy in the afternoon, high of 74, low of 51. Tell you, Stanley Clarke is sounding so good there. I'm going to have to rewind that and play that again. I haven't heard that in a while, so I'm going to go ahead and let that play while I read from our two books as well. The weather was brought to you by the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. Well, maybe Justice Storms want to play again. There we go. All right. You know, I read from two books to kick the show off. It always kicks the show off in a positive vein because they're actually kind of like positive readings, usually from a daily devotional. So I read from two. 1, The Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for Discovering the Strength of Gratitude, and that's by Joyce Meyer. And the other is Until Today by Iyanla Van Zant. So Joyce says for today, June the 4th, following God's lead. He refreshes and restores my life. He leads me in the paths of righteousness, uprightness, and right standing with him, not for my earning it, but for his name's sake. And of course, that's from Psalm 23. God never leads us anywhere that he cannot keep us. If God is leading you to deal with some unpleasant situation in your life, don't run from it. Trust that God is going to help you and be thankful that you are not alone. He promises to be with you at all times and never to leave or forsake you. Surrender can be frightening when we first begin to practice it because we don't know exactly what the outcome will be if we yield ourselves to God's will. However, once we have surrendered and we begin to experience the peace that passes understanding, we learn quickly that God's way is better than any plan we could ever devise, and we are thankful for his leading. Cast your care on him today and let him take care of you. Our prayer of thanks. Father, when I am not sure what to do or where to go, I thank you that you have promised to lead me. I submit my will and my plans to you, and I will follow your plan for my life wholeheartedly. That's from the book, The Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for Discovering the Strength of Gratitude. From Iyanla Van Zant's book, Until Today. Iyanla says for June 4th, I am now willing to forgive myself for forgetting that I am not in charge. Spirit is. Wow, the two connect. Very often when things do not turn out the way we hope they would, we start labeling things right or wrong, good or bad. Whenever our way is not the way things seem to be going, we get caught up in fear and jump to foregone conclusions of doom. There is a way to avoid these dangerous reactions. It is to remember at all times nothing can be hidden in the universe of spirit. We all live in the universe of spirit where time and forgiveness always reveal the truth. There is never a need to prove that you made the right choices and are unjustly receiving the wrong results. When results appear to run amok, shut up, back up, pray for yourself. Forgive yourself for forgetting that spirit is always in charge. Forgive yourself for thinking that someone or something can stop your spiritual destiny from unfolding at the perfect time in the perfect way. The spirit of good will always work on your behalf if you are willing to let it do its thing. If someone has stepped into your path in a foolish attempt to disrupt Spirit's plan for you, know that the divine plan cannot remain hidden for long. Spirit will reveal to you what you need to know to get back on track. When that happens, don't gloat. Remember those who challenge the power of the Spirit life know not what they do, quote unquote. Forgive them and be grateful that the loving Spirit that is the power source of the universe is always on the side of good. Spirit will always reveal what needs to be revealed, teach what needs to be taught, and do what needs to be done. Until today, you may have been caught up in situations that appear to be going badly. Just for today, practice forgiving yourself for believing that bad things can happen where the goodness of Spirit reigns supreme. Today I am devoted to remembering that at all times, in all situations, Spirit is in charge. That's for today, June the 4th, from the book Until Today by Iyanla Van Zant. Now is the time for me to introduce my guest. Like I said, she's already on the line. She called in right on time. I always ask my guests to call in at about 5:55, 5 minutes or so prior to us going on the air. I ask them to call in. And most, if not just about all, they do. But every now and again, someone will oversleep or something else has come up and that phone does not ring. That was not the case this morning, as my guest, Dr. Sheila D. Williams, is on the line. And Dr. Sheila Williams has over 20 years of successful professional experience. Her expertise is very eclectic. I always love that word, as she is an independent consultant, SW Consulting Services, LLC, a mental health therapist, a behavior analyst, counselor, published author and educational leader, where she currently holds the position of Director of Education for SAE Institute in ATL, one of my favorite cities, Atlanta. She has an extensive educational background, as she holds a BA in psychology with a minor in sociology from the University of Central Florida, an MA in counseling from Webster University, and a PhD in leadership and education from Barry University. After caring for her mother, who suffered from clinical depression and multiple sclerosis, Dr. Williams decided to pursue her education and career in the mental health field. With a love for education and a background in helping others, she remained in the social service industry for over 10 years. She saw the correlation between at-risk students and social emotional disorders and decided to make the transition to higher education administration. By doing so, she serves as a catalyst for educational reform and sees each day as an opportunity to touch someone's life in a positive way. Having dealt with the responsibility of caring for her mother, who had depression, and having once been told by her high school guidance counselor that college was not for her, she would not take no for an answer. Dr. Williams turned what could have been seen as a challenge into an opportunity to prove that, yes, you can. Dr. Williams has a natural love for life and finds joy in helping others to reach their fullest potential. She believes in taking adversity and turning it into an opportunity to propel oneself to the next level. Dr. Williams is an avid reader all right now and enjoys traveling, writing, researching, and spending time with her family and friends. She often is encountered by those who can't believe her story. So with that, she decided to write her autobiography. In her first book of a volume 3 of a volume autobiography, My Mother's Keeper, Dr. Williams gives you an introduction into her life, the mystery, the challenges, and the truth behind what motivated Dr. Williams to persevere and accomplish all the things she set out to do. She's in the process of completing her second book and continues to live her life as an inspiration to others. Dr. Sheila Williams, welcome to the microphones of the Reading Circle with Marc Medley.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I am happy to have you here. Now, listening audience, you know I'm very transparent. I share everything. If you don't want it to be known, don't tell me. But in any event, the way this interview came around was really funny. It really was. Most of you know that I get the bulk of my guests now from social media in one form or another, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or what have you. It's a wonderful way for me to connect with folks out there in the industry. And so when Dr. Williams and I connected, she let me know that she'd written her book and everything, thought it would be a great interview, and I thought so too. And I go through this whole thing with scheduling. In other words, you may not hear from me from a little bit until I go into a scheduling season. And the enthusiasm of Dr. Williams, I tell you, I think you've been one of my most enthusiastic guests in terms of keeping in contact prior to getting scheduled.
I want to make sure I have it penciled or penned in so I don't miss it.
I know that's right. So I'm steady telling Dr. Williams, be patient. I'm going to get back to you. I'm scheduling. I'm in the process of scheduling. So this Saturday opened up. This week opened up. As it turns out, I didn't have anybody slotted in. And so I gave her a holler early in the week and said, hey, you want to do Saturday? And she graciously said yes. And she is now here. And we are going to have a good time talking about a wide range of topics, as you heard in her bio. That she is a Renaissance woman, does many things, use one of my favorite interesting words with eclectic. See, and I'm a wordsmith as a language arts teacher and now a principal. I hang on words. So words like eclectic, I like those. So I'm going to share some information with the listening audience. Listening audience, you know what to do. Get on all, and I mean all, of your social media sites and let somebody know that Dr. Williams is on the air with me. This is not an interview you want to miss. Text somebody, call them up, wake them up. Do what you need to do, but tell them to turn to gobrave.org on their computers, as well as if they're in the northern New Jersey area, WP 88.7 FM.
The thought of my sons growing up without me inspired me to quit smoking.
I talked to my doctors, and then I threw away all my cigarettes, ashtrays, and lighters.
I started exercising instead of smoking.
Staying away from alcohol when I was first quitting was key.
I kept on trying, learned something each time.
Do whatever it takes.
No matter how many times it takes.
We did it, so can you.
For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC. The following message is about Medicaid and CHIP, free or low-cost health coverage for kids and teens. Enrollment is open year-round.
Hey, voice lady, give me the mic.
Okay.
Hey, DJ, let's switch up the music. That's better. So listen up, moms and dads out there. There are these programs called Medicaid and CHIP. They offer free or low-cost health coverage for kids. Things like doctor and dentist visits, prescriptions, and shots are covered. All the stuff that keeps kids like me healthy and in charge.
So, as you can tell, a covered kid is a confident kid. And it means confident parents, too. To learn more about affordable health coverage for your family, visit healthcare.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. That's 1-877-543-7669.
Yep, you could do something big for your family today because enrollment is open year-round.
This has been a message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
And Sophia.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, indeed, you are. You're listening to The Reading Circle. We come to you each week at this hour from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock or roughly thereabouts sometimes. And I have a feeling this morning is going to be one of those where we run into the 7 o'clock hour. And then I put on the good news and song, which is the gospel music. And I'm here on the air till 9 o'clock. And we'll do that as we have done for now 15 years. So we are going to start at the beginning with Dr. Williams. First of all, if Williams, your maiden or married name?
Williams is my name.
That's your name. Okay, I'm asking for a reason because my wife's maiden name is Williams, and I tell you,
it is my maiden name.
Is it really? Well, my wife is a
name.
Williams as well, and I always tease her and say, "Boy, Mr. Williams got around." Because if you look in the telephone book, if you go to the W section, Williams is the longest one there, like Smith is in S. And Johnson is in J. And all
right.
Those.
Johnson,
Jones.
Yeah,
exactly. So Johnson, Jones, Smith, Williams, all them brothers got around. I tell you.
Yes. And still getting around.
So, all right. As I said, whenever, we talked a couple minutes before going on the air, generally the first question I ask is kind of where I see you're an avid reader. I saw that in the bio. Is that something you did as a child or did that come later in life?
As a child, I found myself engrossed with reading. Once I became able to read, I never stopped. And then with the reading became the writing as well. So just hand in hand.
How did your classmates, so obviously when you were in school, then you like doing that. And how did your classmates feel about that? Did they kind of like tease you, or did they see you as a bookworm or the nerd or the geek or the this or the what, or the teacher's pet? Or did they, how did your class, and I say that because this show is about reading. And the hope, whenever it was put together, was that it would increase folks' interest, pique their curiosity, and hopefully that they ultimately would read more. And I know serving as the principal of a school, sometimes getting kids to read is a tough sell. So a lot of times whenever I get someone that was an avid reader from childhood, I always ask that question in terms of, well, how did your classmate, or did you hang with a bunch of kids who read?
Well, I hang with all kinds of kids. So what would happen was, I'd be in second grade and my reading was a bit advanced. So when it was time for us to actually read, I would go to maybe third or fourth grade. Right. And I would read with the third or fourth graders because my reading was advanced.
I remember I had the same experience.
Yeah. So obviously most of my friends were in, say, second grade. So with me reading, above my level, I never got picked on for that or anything like that. They just knew, okay, she was going to another class because it's reading time. So, no. So I had friends that were in third and fourth grade, and then, of course, my friends who were my age in second grade. So, it just kind of continued. So then, of course, when I was at home, I read, so if you read the book, My Mother's Keeper, I found solace in reading and then later in writing as well. So I've been doing it for a long time now. Didn't even realize what I was really doing, but, from writing a poem or writing a sentence here or there, and then coming back to reflect upon it later. Didn't really have a diary per se, but it was just jots of paper here and there.
Right.
Yeah, and then it just progressed.
That's interesting because and it's funny you mentioned those grade levels because that was the same grade level where I had that experience. As a matter of fact, I remember the teachers. My second grade teacher was Miss Royster, and I would go to Miss Walden for reading. Miss Walden taught third grade. And Miss Walden must have been about maybe 70.
Oh, wow.
So she had to be close to there somewhere.
Right.
And she was one of them old school teachers. She did not play. If you didn't do right in her class, she held your hand out and popped you with the ruler.
Yeah, we got that back then.
Yes.
You can't do that now.
That's right.
That now.
That's absolutely right. But I remember that well because I went to Miss Walden. She was third grade teacher, and I read with those kids. So, all right, you had that going on, and you said you really didn't keep a journal or anything. So, but the writing, you said, went along with the fact that you like to read. So did you kind of, okay, what did you write, and when did you write, or did the thought of writing a book come later?
The thought of writing a book came after I finished my dissertation, which basically was a book. So once I got that published, I continued to write, but it wasn't until, after my mother passed away and so many just a flood of emotions and so many things came to mind, I started writing, kind of keeping a journal. And then so many people were telling me, you really should write a book. And so I said, you know what, I should, and I will. So knowing, obviously, my story and a lot of the things that I have experienced, that's why it's not all in one book, but in 3, I decided to go ahead and put it out there because I feel like it's a message that people should hear and know.
So I noticed as we read, and I read the bio in terms of the book and everything, that your mom suffered from depression.
She did.
And how did you know? Or was it something that was known throughout the household?
No. We obviously did not know until many, many years later. One thing that I speak about in the book and I speak about when I do public speaking engagements is that oftentimes we don't talk about the mental illness that we may suffer ourselves or a family member, loved one, friend. It's so taboo still to talk about clinical depression or any type of mental illness, especially in the African-American community. So
you went right where I was getting ready to ask. That was my next thing. Keep going, because you went right where I was going.
Yeah, so, at first we did not know until probably I was, maybe in my 20s. I am still 22, by the way. I'm just joking.
I looked at that picture. I thought so.
Thank you. And then you read my bio, and it's like, okay, time stood still. She's still 22 years old.
You were a child prodigy. You started at 3. That's it. I got it.
That would be nice. But no. So probably in my 20s, we didn't finally... the doctors gave her a correct diagnosis of clinical depression, but all through my childhood, it was never diagnosed. So we obviously knew something was not quite right with Mom. We knew that she loved us. I mean, she was just as sweet and just as delicate and just, a lovely, beautiful woman inside and out. But she suffered from clinical depression. Our house was dark. Because she didn't often open the blinds. On some days she did, some days she did not. And it was always quiet. And, just from clinical depression, as you know it, it can cause physical ailments like you hurt or you're in pain or you just lack energy to do a lot of things. It's different from person to person, but those were some of her symptoms. And, as a child, I was just like, okay, Mom's really quiet. She doesn't like to talk to a lot of people, and she hurts a lot, and she's tired a lot. So that's just how I knew my mother. But it wasn't until, like I said, in my 20s that we finally were able to get her diagnosed. So from one doctor to the next, they would give her one pain pill or a muscle relaxer, but I mean, it wasn't a physical ailment; it was mental. So, unfortunately, it was not diagnosed until, many, many years later. But as a child, I just couldn't understand it, especially as a young child. But by the time I got to middle school and high school, I had read upon a lot of this myself.
Right.
And I'm like, wait a minute, this sounds like my mother.
Right.
So as we continued to go to the doctor, like I said, in my early 20s, through my own research, this kind of sounds like, and then from another to another, they say, yeah, definitely clinical depression.
That point, or very good point you brought up, that a lot of people really do not connect, is this association between what goes on in your mind and how it impacts your body.
Right.
And in terms of, like you say, in hurting and all that kind of stuff, a lot of that does come from mind. And so what you think about and what you tell yourself and all that, because this is why I always tell people in terms of holding grudges and getting angry and not speaking.
Yes.
I said, eventually that's going to turn into a physical health condition.
Oh, yes.
And people look at me like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Okay, keep on with that behavior. Keep on holding grudges. Keep on with a whole bunch of anger inside of you or what have you. It's going to manifest in some type of physical altercation or some type of physical problem. And more times than not, that happens. So the fact that I heard you say that, and I see where she was ultimately diagnosed with multiple sclerosis as well.
Correct. She was. And that was, oh my goodness, that was probably another 15 to 20 years later that the multiple sclerosis diagnosis come. So between being diagnosed finally with clinical depression, she was medicated for that, but then the pains continued. So there were several misdiagnoses after that as well because she was still hurting. So it was assumed that the pain that she was feeling or stating that she had was coming from still her clinical depression. So it was actually not, because at this point she had the multiple sclerosis.
So it actually was physical then.
Yes, exactly. So it was misdiagnosed several times. One time in which it was misdiagnosed as Parkinson's disease, and it was not Parkinson's disease, it was MS.
Now, I see in the bio you make a special note to reference. You says this woman of God. And I'm asking that question because a lot of people think, those of us who are Christians, those of us who believe, that we don't go through anything. And I'm sure whenever you start talking mental, folks will start saying, well, you're a Christian. Well, you're a woman of God. Why, look up. Why can't you? What is there to be depressed about? You're a child of God, a child of the King. How does all of that come into play in terms of being a Christian as well as being clinically depressed?
Right. Well, everyone has their own beliefs. And, you could line up 10 Christians, and there'll probably be 8, 9, 10 different beliefs when it comes to depression or mental illness. I experienced it. So I know that although we have faith in God and we believe in God, just as we have physical ailments, we also can suffer from mental ailments as well. So,
absolutely.
If you have cancer or if you have a broken leg, you are going to go to the doctor for those physical ailments. So if you have a mental disorder, then you would go to the doctor for those mental disorders as well. So that's my personal belief. I'm not going to, say that, someone else is wrong because that's your belief. But through my professional and personal experience, obviously, I can definitely relate and connect to and speak upon the fact that obviously my faith in God is like none other because of, obviously the things that I've experienced. But also I can tell you that if it's not treated, then it continues to manifest itself and it will not go away.
Right.
So it will manifest in some other form of fashion, as you mentioned, a physical, a medical problem. It manifests and then it continues from generation to generation if it is not correctly treated and addressed. So that is why I decided to write the book, because we need to talk about it. It will not go away. And unless we talk about it, there is no hope and there is no healing to it, is the way that I feel. So,
and I couldn't agree with you more. But just now you said something that really, really got my eyebrow raised. You said, wait, clinical depression can go from generation to generation?
Oh, yes, most certainly.
Wow.
Most certainly, yes. It's just as we say, there's research to indicate that, even alcoholism.
Right.
So whether or not there's something I would say in our genetic makeup or not, because there are two different sides to that research. one of the one side of the research indicates that, yes, there is a biological makeup in us that, the clinical depression or any other kind of mental disorder kind of repeats itself from generation to generation. And then there is the other side that says, no, it's not actual biological makeup and it's inherent in our genes. It's actually the socialization of being raised and socialized in a home with a parent that is an alcoholic, or with a parent or caregiver who has a clinical depression. So those behaviors start to manifest from generation to generation. So it's not necessarily that it is biological per se. The other argument is that it's socialized and learned. So,
and that's
two different arguments.
Right. And maybe, to a certain extent, probably both of them are valid respectively. Because I guess the situations could vary. But now going back to what you said in terms of the whole notion of the physical doctor versus the mental, my pastor is in that same boat. That's what he tells us in the church all the time. Going back to, that's why whenever you were saying about African Americans with it being taboo, absolutely right. And I know in my church, our pastor is constantly saying, look, there's no reason that you ought to be ashamed. There's no reason why, if you need to go to a therapist or you need a counselor, or as a matter of fact, we just had a young lady in our church. We kicked that we had, as a part of our church, we have someone that does that service now. And so he is a big advocate of that in terms of kind of like taking the cover off of that area, because like you just said, if no one knows about it, if we don't talk about it, it's not going to change. And I'm always amazed, because I've also had sex experts and Christian authors that have written books that have sex scenes. I'm always amazed at the so-called taboo subjects in church. And in my mind, there should not be any taboo subjects, because the role of the church is to transform. So you can't transform what you won't address. And yet and I can't speak for them, but I can speak about the black church or the African American church, because that's what I've been in all my days. We have these taboo subjects, yet it's always going on. Like with the sex thing, we all like, okay, well, how did we all get here then? I mean, you have church people have 9, 10, 11, 12 kids. How'd they get here? I mean, so we and the same thing, we have people who are sitting in churches who have clinical depression. We have people sitting in churches who are depressed. They may have some other mental imbalance going on. And yet we got to try to keep that hush-hush when we should be doing exactly what you're doing. Look, we got to talk about this thing. We got to write about this thing. If you need the help, go get it. There's no shame in getting it. But and I do understand the times, because, 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, probably folks did. But in 2016, there is no reason for us not to get the help that we need.
Exactly.
So you started out as a psychologist.
Yes.
And then you moved into the other areas. But now, you went into the psychology because of your experience with your mom?
Yes, and it I actually wanted to be the first black woman astronaut.
All right now.
Someone beat me to that, and then I often tell people that. They say, how do you go from astronaut to mental health counselor to educational director? Because it's the path that was meant to be.
Absolutely.
This is exactly where I was supposed to be all along. So I didn't actually make it to the moon as of yet.
That's right.
But yes, I started out in the mental health. Like I said, I started to research things about, just different behaviors and the psychology, all of it. And then I realized, wait a minute, my mom does this and she has that and she kind of behaves this way. And it was almost as if, I was starting to diagnose her before I even realized that's what I was doing, because it was high school. And then when I got to college, I decided to pursue my bachelor's. I changed. I decided to pursue my bachelor's degree in psychology, because that's not what I was going to do. I was always really good at math. There's the reason why the astronaut thing came into play. I was always really good in math as well, and I was going to be a math major. And probably my senior year, I just changed. I changed my mind about it. Although I took several math courses while I was in college, once I graduated, I knew that I wanted to change my major to psychology. And then it went from psychology to my master's degree in counseling, mental health counseling. And then, as you read in my bio, the transfer over to higher education.
But see, they're all connected. I mean, and as a principal, trust me, I know. We wear so many hats as educators. It's not funny. I mean, there are many days I play the role as counselor. And so those dovetail nicely in terms of the psychology, the counseling, the education. It's all connected. You're right. You're exactly where you were placed on the planet to be.
Right.
And they are connected, and each one supports the other. And I heard you say it, and as soon as I say that, I'm going to share some more information with the listening audience. I stopped saying taking a break because it's like we're not going anywhere. I don't want them to go anywhere. But so I'm going to share some more information with them and whenever I finish this statement. But see, in terms of, and maybe it's this thing, maybe those of us who are readers, that's how we approach things. I don't know. But I'm the same way. If I have an issue or a problem or something that I've observed, I start reading about it.
Right.
And so whatever, if the doctor tell me you have a cold, you have this, and I'm gonna use a cold. But if the doctor ever tell me I had some kind of ailment, I'll use one. I'm pre-diabetic. I'm on the borderline, not there yet, but it runs in the family.
Right.
So you best believe when the doctor told me that, I started reading everything I could about diabetes.
Right.
So what kind of foods to eat, what I couldn't eat, exercises, do this, that, and the other. So now I have a bank of research in terms of things that I've read. But a lot of people will look, you just want to get into theory, no. You need to understand, if you want to address something, you need to have everything in your background possible as to how to fight the battle. And so for me, books do that. So anytime I come up with any kind of issue, I don't care what it is. And since Kindle came along, it's been a matter of just pressing the button. But before Kindle and all that, I was making my way to Barnes & Noble or whatever the latest bookstore is.
Right.
Because, you cannot, when you're trying to address something, you need as much information as you can about it. So I heard you say, as you started reading, wait a minute, this sounds like Mom.
Right. Yes, definitely.
So, all right, I'm going to share some information with the listening audience. You know what to do. This is your time not to go anywhere unless you have to go to the bathroom. But other than that, get on your computers, on all your social media sites, and let someone know that Dr. Sheila Williams is on the line with me. We are talking clinical depression, amongst other things. So that's what I just put on all my feeds. So we're talking clinical depression this morning. You want to tune in? So any kind of way possible, get somebody to tune in because this is worthy. Because guess what? Now, because I'm sure there's a percentage, and maybe we can talk about it whenever we come back, and probably from your research, but I'm sure there's a percentage of people who are suffering with some type of depression. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back, because when we get the percentage, that means I'm going to tell you, whenever you're in a crowd of that many people, you can count out how many people might be suffering from that you don't know about. All right. You know what to do. Let somebody know that we are indeed on the air.
Music, the vinyl frontier. Tune into the adventures of Rewind to Now. Its weekly mission, to explore time-honored music, to seek out lesser-known bands and forgotten tunes, to boldly go where the music is the star of the show. How you doing, G-Man checking in? Set your radio, computer, and tricorder to the one program that enables you to experience the future of the past through the music. We interface Sundays at 9 a.m. Prepare to be transported to a world where the music is fascinating. Set your coordinates to Rewind to Now. It's the logical thing to do. No bones about it.
All right, you're listening to The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. I tell you what, while we're talking about mental health, ask yourself, what kind of friend are you? Are you a work friend? Are you a friend that hangs out on weekends? Are you a chill out and watch TV friend? Are you that friend who shows up on moving day, or are you the kind of friend who's there for someone dealing with a mental illness? Be there for them, because your support will give them a much greater chance of recovery. Mental illness. What a difference a friend makes. For more information on how to support someone dealing with a mental illness, go to whatadifference.org. brought to you by the Department of Health and Human Services, the Ad Council, and your friends right here at WP 88.7 FM. Okay, hopefully you've been with us since 6 because the interview has been fascinating thus far. But if you've just joined us, my guest is Dr. Sheila Williams, and we're talking about her book, My Mother's Keeper, which deals with clinical depression. And right before I shared the information with you, the promo, I was talking about the possibility that Dr. Williams probably knows, because she has a PhD, had to do the research and everything. Somewhere along the lines, you come across a number, a percentage of people suffering from clinical depression. I don't know what that number is, and I'm saying that because I remember I used to teach diversity. And at that time, and this is going back in the 90s, they said 1 in every 4 people was gay or homosexual. So and I'm quite sure that number's probably risen now. Either they've come out the closet or they've told more people, and now it's acceptable, socially acceptable, what have you. But we emphasize that to say, all right, count off. For every 4 people, 1 is a homosexual in that group. You may or may not know about it, but that's the percentages. It's the same thing with the clinical depression. I don't know if it's 33%, 10%, 5%, 2%, but you can tell me, and then we'll do the math.
Right. Well, that number tends to fluctuate and change from year to year and whatever statistics you're pulling. But usually it's pretty consistent to say about 10% of the population, 1 in every 10 people, suffers from depression at some point in your life. Not to say that you will have depression forever, right? But at some point in our lives, depending upon the circumstances and the situations in which we encounter. So, if you've gone through a divorce, or you've lost a parent or a child or a loved one, or you've gone through bankruptcy, there's so many different reasons, so many different situations that could bring upon depression, or it could be something that you've experienced all of your life. Right. So it just depends, but it's estimated that about 1 in every 10 people. Okay. And the reason I bring that up, let's say, and again, math was not my thing, but I could do it. But let's say we have a church of 100 people. So that means if you're sitting in a church with 100 people, that is a good possibility that 10 of those people in that church, whether they've signified it or not, are suffering from depression. Right. So where I'm going back to is back to this whole taboo thing. We need to uncover anything in life. It needs to be talked about, explored, and then addressed in our churches. And a lot of time, unfortunately, our churches fall short because we don't address these issues because we're so busy trying to, we can't talk about that. No, that's no. Right. God will fix it. Oh, yeah, no. Right. All you got to do is pray. We get so caught up in that we don't address it. Yes, God will fix it, but there's some parts we have to do too. So in terms of different types of depression, I know we're talking clinical depression, but what else falls kind of under that umbrella? I mean, when you start talking bipolar, or you start talking other types of, because even with I have, and it absolutely blows my mind each time it's brought to my office, but we have 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders talking about committing suicide. Right. So are there different types of depression, or does it all just lump under depression? Yeah, there's so many different types of depression, but the other one that's very prevalent and that you hear about a lot is the one that you mentioned, which is bipolar, because they, experience life and here, and like you mentioned before, in 2016, there's so many different things that they are experiencing, middle school, even elementary school, that, many years ago we weren't experiencing. So the pressures of social media, so much going on social media. You hear about the cyberbullying, right? All of that. So children now, obviously adults as well, but children now, as you mentioned, experience a lot of stress from their peers and other things that they may be experiencing. So the depression could be very early on. Elementary school, small children could be suffering from depression. So it's not anything to take light of. I know that when I worked in the public school system as a guidance counselor. As you mentioned, I'd have children writing notes stating that I want to die, or
right.
I don't want to live anymore, and it's because of all of the pressures that they're experiencing, either from peers or things that may be going on at home, or sometimes they don't feel as if they measure up to other students in school because they may not be doing so well academically. So there's just a whole gamut of things that could, cause a person to go into depression, or, as you mentioned, the bipolar disorder. So there's just so many medical reasons. If you're suffering physically from ailments and you can't do the things that you used to do, that can cause you to be clinically depressed as well. So, yeah, there's just so many different things. With my mother, she had mentioned to me as a child that when she was a child, she alluded to something perhaps had happened to her. So, I had heard that at one point as a child, she was very outspoken and very outgoing. And then a few years later, she just kind of went into a shell.
Wow.
And did not exhibit those type of outgoing and very extroverted type behaviors anymore. She, reclused to, just maybe only a couple of friends, and did not, participate in a lot of activities as she did when she was, younger.
Right.
Definitely by middle school and high school, she was extremely quiet, very introverted, and did not socialize with very many other kids her age at all. And, that just continued all the way until, she was an adult and married my father and had all three of her children. And, again, until many, many years later that she was finally diagnosed. So it was just thought that my mother was really quiet. And, my friends would often ask me, well, why does your mama talk? And I don't know. She just don't talk. I didn't have an answer for it. And then when I did have an answer for it, again, it was a bit taboo. We didn't talk about it.
Right.
It was just like, we need to make sure we take care of her, because she was very, as I mentioned in my book, My Mother's Keeper, she was very delicate.
Wow.
And, and just knowing that, something had possibly happened to her, never wanted anything else to happen to her.
Wow.
So,
and see, it's interesting from the standpoint you said, at one point she was very outgoing as a child. So, and you don't know if something happened or not that shut her down, but it's a good possibility it was. But that's something. And working with kids, I get that. I see. I'm in an urban area, so I think suburban and urban each has their own issues. They're just different issues. But I can speak to urban issues, and I know some of this same. I've had kids who are homeless. I've had kids who've been molested. I've had kids who've been raped. I've had kids who've been kidnapped. I've had kids. I had kids who've seen family members killed. I have kids that have seen more death, sex, and drugs in 5 years, 5-6 years old, and I've seen in my entire 50 plus. And it is something. So a lot of somebody said something to me a lot of our kids are suffering from post-traumatic syndrome disorder. A lot of the little kids, they haven't been to Vietnam or they haven't been to Iraq, but they're in Patterson. And so they're suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome. And you just never know when something like that could happen that will change the entire life. And
definitely.
So I had two questions for you that were coming up as you were talking. One was how, and I don't want to say if it was difficult, and I need you to tell me, how was it for you now writing your mom's experience in the book, My Mother's Keeper?
There was such an overwhelming, combination of emotions that flooded me, because I didn't start to write it until she passed away.
Right.
Again, because I didn't, well, for one thing, I was caring for her and working and, just life. But it wasn't until I sat and I said to myself, by her being so quiet she didn't really feel as if she had a voice. So she held a lot of things in, obviously, from childhood until the day that she passed away. But throughout my, coming up and talking to her, and she would disclose little things here and there. So I felt as if it was meant for me to be the voice. So although she is no longer here, I am serving as her voice to tell her story and to just put it out there that in spite of the things that you go through,
right,
there is help. For me as a child growing up with a mother that suffered from clinical depression, it was at times very different.
I'm sure.
But for me, I didn't see it as difficult. I saw it as a challenge, and I often, as you again mentioned in my bio,
right.
I take challenges as, okay, so high school guidance counselor, you're telling me that I can't go to college, which makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, that statement, I said if any of the staff that I serve with ever came to me, a child said, I would seek to have their license removed. If I learned that, I would do everything in my power to bring up tenure charges on that person.
Yes. I say, how dare you say to me, well, I would recommend you probably go, because, we weren't rich. We didn't have a lot of money. I think he was maybe thinking that perhaps financially, you're not going to be able to afford it. But that should have been the last thing that was discussed, because
Absolutely.
There's always money out there. There's some kind of way. Even
That's
if you
right.
get a loan, if you want to go to college, there's a way in which you can make that happen. So even as a child, I didn't realize this. Obviously, as a child in elementary, middle, and high school, that's what I've always done. So if I see a challenge, I don't run away from it. I hit it head on, and I figure out some kind of way to deal with it. And even if dealing with it just means that I got to go through it,
right,
it is what it is. So, when you have a primary caregiver, of course, my father was the parent that worked. So he worked while, because my mother did not work.
Right.
She was a housewife, and she took care of the home and her children. She took care of all of us. So while he was working, it was, just me and my mom most of the time, because my brother and my sister are so much older than I. And with that, when she wasn't feeling good, or when she was in bed and she wanted it really quiet and dark in the house, I'm like, okay, I got to find something to do here.
Wow.
So that's why the reading and the writing became my comfort zone. So I didn't really see it as difficult. I saw it as different.
Okay.
And although I didn't complain about it. I didn't tell my friends, like, oh, my goodness, let me tell you what I got to deal with when I go home. So it's not until probably 10 years ago or so that I started to disclose certain things, and my childhood friends are now saying that explains it. I always wondered why you didn't come outside and play that much. Some thought that it was because my father was strict, and he was a little strict. But remember, he wasn't home a lot because he was working all the time. So I could have done that, but my responsibility was to care for my mother, and it was not something that was told to me that I had to do.
Right.
It was a responsibility that I took upon myself, and I just owned it until the day that she passed away. So I didn't see it really as a challenge, or I should say difficult. It was a bit challenging, I should say, but not difficult. Not anything that I ever complained about. So that challenge, I took it as an opportunity to, number one, take advantage of the time that I have. It's really quiet, so I'd always get my work done, my homework. That would be done like immediately. And then, okay, now what am I going to do?
Right.
So, as I got older, at 14, 15 years old, I started working, and then obviously have never stopped working since then.
Right.
But up until that point, I didn't watch a lot of TV as a child. Again, I read and I wrote a lot. So I tell people a lot of times that it causes you to be very comfortable with being alone.
Right.
And some people are not comfortable.
That's right.
I don't have to have a lot of people around when you grow up in a home where it's really quiet and your mother has clinical depression. So you have to find happiness within yourself.
Right.
So, so you spend a lot of time alone and able to think about a lot of things. So, so just as a child, I found that our home and my entire family situation was a bit different. But we're all different, and, just own it. And that's the beauty in all of us being very different and
that's
being
correct.
who we are.
Correct.
None of us are exactly the same, and you go from house to house, everybody's dealing with something.
Right.
You may not be dealing with a mother who has clinical depression, but you're dealing with something else.
Absolutely.
So you move on to the next house, and there's something else going on in there.
That's absolutely right. Yes. My mother, who I think is, I never know if she's listening or not, because she lives down in, she's not too far from you. She's about 2.5 hours from you, I guess, east. She's in Louisville, Georgia. And Louisville's closer to Augusta. But I'm sure if she's listening, I know what went through her mind, because she tells me this all the time. And I'm like, Mom, that's kind of obvious. But she does. Everybody has problems. That's what she always says. Everybody, I don't care who it is, everybody has a problem. I'm like, yeah, Mom, you're right. They do. But you're absolutely right, as she is also. Your issue may not be my issue, but we have issues nonetheless. And there was something that you said there about in terms of being comfortable with being alone. I am convinced. Now, I know where you silence or wanting to be quiet or in the dark or what have you is one of the symptoms of depression. But people who just like quiet or like to be in the dark now are not necessarily depressed. But I am convinced that most or many people really are uncomfortable with silence. I mean, working with the kids again, we've tried to get them quiet, and you'll get the class. There's got to be somebody that got to be making noise. And I always said, I said, you know what? I think you're afraid of silence. I think in their home lives, it's so noisy all the time that whenever we get to silence, they're scared of that.
Right. And
some people the same way in terms of being alone. There's like, go to the park somewhere and sit down and look at the lake, or go read, or go to they got to always be in chaos.
Right.
There are. You're right. There are some people that gotta always be in chaos. They always got to be making some noise. Always got to have noise around them. I mean, I know people that have to sleep with the TV on and all that.
Yes.
It's just But like, see, for me, I can go somewhere and get quiet and not be bothered, and I'm not depressed. Not that I know of.
I embrace quiet.
I do too.
What's crazy is I'll have the TV on and it's like the volume is at 0.
Right.
It's on. I'm watching it, but because I can think better when it's quiet.
I'm the same way in terms of just being able to reflect, being able to think, being able to map things out in your head, so forth and so on. The next question I had for you as you were talking was, how does depression or some significant event as a child, how does that impact your relationships as an adult?
I can only speak for myself. When you have, like I said before, when you have the environment in which you find happiness and I would even say approval from yourself. So you have this, I have an intrinsic motivation where some people say, okay, Sheila, what are you doing now? It's like a drive that I've constantly had, since a child. So this is who I am. So if I'm not doing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 things at one time, I'm personally, nobody's making me do this. I'm personally constantly pushing myself.
Right.
So, there, again, you may line 10 of us up who had similar experiences with a parent who suffered from clinical depression or some other mental illness, and we're probably all going to be very different. But for me, I, again, saw the challenge as a drive, as a goal, as an opportunity to say, the odds are stacked up against me here. I am an African-American woman. I have a mother who has clinical depression. I am not coming from a home where we have millions of dollars.
Right.
And I'm the first of my family to, not the first of my family to attend college, but the first of my family to, complete a doctorate degree. So so many different things. A woman, like I said, a woman, African American. I mean, you can look at it all,
right,
and say, you know, oh my goodness, you know, you're going to be a statistic. But I think we're all a statistic in some way or another. So whether you look at it as a positive or a negative, it's just the way that you look at it. For me, I see challenges as, okay, you told me that I can't, I'm going to show you how I can.
Absolutely.
And, you know, so it could manifest, to answer your question, it could manifest in the individual being, you know, clinically depressed themselves. It could manifest in, you know, hey, I'm going to take these odds and I'm going to flip them around. I'm going to, you know, I've been dealt this hand, but I'm going to play this hand to the best of my ability.
So what about the person, like, say, for example, how did it impact your mom's relationships then? Like, because she had the depression, how did it impact her relationships? Like, I know with you, it seems like it brought you two closer. Did it push anybody away?
More than likely, I'm quite sure that it did, because, like I said, she didn't participate in a lot of social activities, even in church, like I mentioned before, we were a Christian home, and my father was an elder in the church. So we went to church and, you know, we participated in church service. She may have stayed maybe 5 minutes after we say amen.
Right.
And then she was like, okay,
time to go.
Yes.
That's right.
So she didn't, you know, she didn't sing in a choir.
Right.
She was not on any kind of board or anything like that. And, you know, of course, you know, the other sisters in the church would try to get her involved, and she may do it for a couple of days, and I'm like, it ain't gonna last. I already knew that, you know.
Right.
I already knew that, okay, Mama, why did you sign up for that? You know, you're not gonna do it. But, you know, because she was so sweet that she would, you know, okay, yeah, I'll sign up for whatever committee or whatever board, but it would never last because she was uncomfortable.
Right.
And, you know, she found comfort in being with my dad, with her husband. She found comfort, you know, in being with her children.
Right.
Or she found comfort just being at home in her, you know, in her comfort, in her safe environment.
Well, that's good. At least she was comfortable with the people who probably she ought to have been the most comfortable with. Because sometimes you'll get someone that's dealing with these issues that actually it ruins their marital relationship, or it ruins the relationship with their children.
Right.
So that's why I was asking, it sounds like in your case that wasn't the issue. Maybe she didn't do anything with people outside, but at least it didn't ruin the home relationships.
It did not. No, and I'm not going to give the entire book away.
No. I don't want you to, because we want folks to buy the book.
Yes.
We're trying to whet their appetite.
But there are some, later in the book, I mentioned some family discourse there. But no, for the most part, no. We all just knew that that's the way that, you know, that's just the way that she was.
Okay.
And we accepted her and we loved her just, you know, just for being mom, just for her very existence, because how could you not love a woman that was so sweet?
Right.
So, yeah, she wouldn't harm a fly. So, you know, just with that, as I say, you know, the title of the book is My Mother's Keeper.
Correct.
You know, when someone is so genuinely sweet and caring, and then you kind of feel like something may have happened to them, or not, just the current state of them mentally and or physically.
Right.
How could you not love them and want to take care of them? And that's just where I was. And of course, she's a woman who, you know, birthed me and gave me life.
Of course, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever you talk about, like, what came to my mind when you was talking about the possibility of an event was Maya Angelou with I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings.
Yes.
Because in Maya's story, she was an outgoing kid as well, and then something happened, and then she didn't speak for a good while. I mean, that's when she kind of went deaf mute. she just didn't talk, period. Just like they honestly thought like she had gone deaf or either mute or what have you. But she just went into a zone where she just didn't speak. I mean, because of that traumatic event. So it does happen. But I tell you what, I'm in the 7 o'clock hour. I need to kind of do the same thing I did in the 6 o'clock hour. For those of you, if you've just joined us, boy, did you miss the first hour. It's kind of like they say in church, child, you missed it. But in any event, my guest is Dr. Sheila D. Williams, and she is author among many other things, but she is author of the book My Mother's Keeper. And even that is a whole nother topic in terms of, I don't know why people, everybody's different. For some people, they only do one thing in life and they're good. But I tend to be more on the side of like you. I like to do many things. I mean, it's like, and people are like, well, why do you do so many things? Because I want to. I mean, that's just kind of like, that's the way, so she is not limited to just being a psychologist. She's not limited to being an educator. She's not limited to being an author. She's not limited to being a counselor. She's doing a little bit of all of it. And really, if you connect the dots, they really do all connect. So I'm going to share the weather with you and do everything else I need to do for our good friends at the FCC. And then we'll continue on for a little bit more. And I'll give Dr. Williams an opportunity to promote the book. And then we'll get on with the gospel music, the good news and song.
WPSC, Wayne, New Jersey. On the radio, 88.7 FM. Online, gobrave.org. A tune-in radio station. Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey. This is the innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The fearless. They have awesome variety. The kick-ass. I love Brave New Radio. The sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
Straight from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center, here's your local forecast.
All right, here's what's going on in the Wayne, New Jersey area. It's 65.6 degrees right now, and it says it feels like 65.6 degrees. We're expecting to move to a high of 84. Overcast, a stray shower, a thunderstorm is possible. Tonight, variable clouds with scattered thunderstorms. We're going to fall back to a low of 63, and then on tomorrow, Sunday, thunderstorms. A few storms may be severe. 80% chance of rain, 75 as a high, 63 as a low. Expect some thunderstorms during the evening. Then on Monday, generally sunny, high of 85. Clearing up Monday night, low of 62. Tuesday, intervals of clouds and sunshine, high of 82. Clear skies Tuesday night, low of 56. Rounding out our forecast on Wednesday. Expect showers in the morning, then partly cloudy in the afternoon. High of 74, low of 51, clearing up Wednesday night. Looks like during the day, that 50% chance of rain. Well, that is the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. Again, govern yourself or equip yourself accordingly based on the forecast. Looks like you want to carry an umbrella with you over the next couple of days, just in case. All right, as I said, my guest this morning is Dr. Sheila Williams. I don't know, who knows, maybe you and my wife are related some kind of way, I guess. Could be. We
may be.
You never know. You never know. So even one of my secretaries at the school, she's a Williams. I mean, I'm surrounded by Williams. I really am. One of my secretaries is a Williams. Like I said, my wife is a Williams. I know many other Williams. And so you never know. You all might be related somewhere. And I did that Ancestry.com thing with the DNA and all that and kind of like started tracing my family tree and roots and all that kind of stuff. So you just never know. You just really don't.
This is true. I've been meaning to do that. I need to do it.
It's a lot of fun. I haven't been on there lately, but I've gotten back to the, I guess, late 1700s or early 1800s, about as far back, I guess, as they tracked African American records, because they didn't even track ours.
Right.
It was like, you know what, you were just a slave. You were just, I mean, if they even called you that, you were chattel. I mean,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, when you start looking into the census, like the old censuses, we were just under the title chattel.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's what you would be listed under. So there's just no telling where we're connected. But her book is My Mother's Keeper, and it deals with her mother suffering through clinical depression and then later on multiple sclerosis. And so because you answered my question in terms of there's two other siblings and they were older than you. Yeah. But it sounds like you did most of the brunt work or the bulk of kind of like the caretaking of your mother. And I'm assuming that's where the title of the book came from.
Yes, definitely. As we mentioned earlier, I mean, it started as early as elementary school.
Right.
Definitely middle school, because I was old enough to at that point, do more things around the house and to realize that, okay, she's not just quiet, something's going on here. And then obviously high school. But by the time I was 10, my oldest sibling, my sister, was already in college. She was already gone. And then by the time I was 12, 13, my brother was already gone. Right. So I was the youngest child, and obviously the one who stayed there. And even when I went to college, I didn't go very far. Right. The college that I attended was only about an hour and a half away from my parents' home. So, yes, and they went, both my brother and my sister, eventually both of them went into the military. So they were in different countries.
Okay.
And, so that's the one thing that I didn't do. I did not go into the military. So I was always here in the States and not too far away from them. And then it'll even mention in the book where at some point in my adult life, I went back a couple of times to take care of my mother, and then later my father,
right,
who was also terminally ill later in life as well. So
now going back to this whole notion of the subject being taboo, talk about the difference between, because this is what I know people do. People confuse something like a mental illness such as depression. They confuse that, they automatically leap to crazy. Talk about the difference, right? Talk about the difference between a depression and somebody crazy. I mean, because that's what I think. That's what kind of drives the taboo thing. Oh, I don't want nobody to think I'm crazy. What? Right. Talk a little bit about those differences.
If you ask me, I think we all kind of crazy.
I know I am. I am a self-identified nut, and I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to say I'm a nut. I'm really not, because I like to have fun. I really do. And my wife just thinks like, you're really off. Like, no, I just like to play and have fun.
Right, exactly. I like you mentioned it earlier. Like, I'm such a lover of life that I don't like the term. I don't really think that anybody's crazy.
Right.
I think that, you're fun, or someone's really outgoing, or they have a very extreme personality. So we may call them crazy because they have extreme personalities. They bungee jump and they skydive or whatever. If that's something that you like to do, just do it.
Right.
I say we get this thing called life, and we have one.
Yes.
You don't get a chance to redo it. So just go for it. Do like the kids say, do you.
Yes.
Whatever it is that makes you happy, as long as, with the caveat now, as long as what you're doing does not harm another person, I feel no harm in it whatsoever. Of course, if you have spiritual or religious beliefs that govern your lifestyle and your behaviors, then that is your spiritual belief, and allow it to govern your lifestyle and your behavior. But whatever it is that makes you happy, because if we are blessed to be 80, 85, 90 years old, and you're sitting on the porch in a rocking chair, you want to have experienced life.
I know that's right.
Experienced it to the fullest.
I know that's right.
My drive is so hard.
I know. I could not agree with you more.
Work really hard. Yes.
I really couldn't, because me and my pastor had this running joke about being 100 and healthy. Now, I get there a couple years before him, but in terms of that is my goal. And I always say God laughs at that, but that is my goal, is to be 100 and healthy, not 100 and scuffling, not 100 and drooling, not 100 and... I want to be like that lady that danced with the Obamas.
Oh, yes. I love that. I love that video. Yes.
I want to be like her. She's 107 or whatever they said she is. And she said, I think I saw something the other day where she was at the baseball game and they let her come down in Washington. I think the Washington National game. She was at the stadium and she did her dance at the stadium. I said, "You go, Mom."
Yes, that's right. That's what I'm talking about.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, that's, and a lot of people really don't get that. It's like we only get one. I got to go with Prince there. When he said, "Don't let the elevator bring you down." Ironically, he was found in the elevator, but let's go crazy.
Right.
So, let's get nuts. But it's, in all seriousness, I just cannot see being here and being miserable. That just, not if it's something beyond your control, like when you start getting into mental things, there are some, I always tie everything back with the kids. And I'm not like a big medication fan of the Ritalin and all that stuff, but there are some kids that when they are on that medication, they are a totally different person than when they're not.
Right.
And my guess is for some of the other illnesses, again, going back to the doctor, if you treat it, you can live a relatively normal life.
Yes.
And if you don't, that's where some of the misery and some of the messed up relationships and some of the harm, bodily harm to others or yourself would come in.
Right. And as you mentioned, some things do not require psychotropic medication, but some at times, and just because you get on medication, I mean, you may only need to be on it for 3, 4, 6
Correct.
months or a year or whatever until you're stabilized. And then at the point you're stabilized, and they can start to reduce the amount of medication you're on.
Right.
And hopefully, eventually, you will come off of it, whether a child or an adult. So both of them, whether a child or adult, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be on the medication forever.
Right.
So even if you don't take medication, you can still get counseling.
Absolutely.
Suffer from any kind of mental illness or disorder. But at times, I would say that if a person is in the psychosis or currently in a mental state in which they are incapacitated mentally
right.
to seek help, then that is where it's necessary for a loved one to step in.
Right.
Say, something's not right. You're not the same. I love you. I'm gonna be here with you regardless. So let's go to the doctor to figure out what's going on.
Absolutely.
Because not always that the person doesn't want the help.
Right.
They don't know how to ask or get the help.
Right. My mother's brother, my uncle, for a while, he was having all this aberrant behavior. I mean, he would call up my mother and his sisters and all and curse them out and all kinds of to call them up and then next minute he called back talking about he loved you and all this. But as it turns out, when they finally figured out what was going on, he had a tumor on his brain.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
He had and once they removed the tumor, all of that stopped.
Right.
But folks didn't know. They were like, well, what's wrong? Why is he calling me up at 3:00 in the morning cursing me out? And
right.
They didn't know. And as it turns out, he had a tumor. So once they took the tumor out, that ceased. So there are times when you really don't know what's going on with people. You really don't. And you can't just judge.
No, exactly. Because you have no idea. And that's the other reason why I wrote the book, is oftentimes people see Dr. Williams, they see the, college administrator, the
right.
college dean, they see the published author, they see the motivational speaker, they see where I currently am, but they have no idea my story or
right.
the things that I've gone through, the obstacles I've had to overcome to get to the point where I am now, Dr. Williams.
Absolutely.
College administrator. So, the premise is that we see a person and we can size them up.
Right.
We have no idea who this man or this woman is.
Right.
So, that's another reason why I wrote the book, is to make my life transparent.
Absolutely.
Where not to say that everybody needs to do that, obviously not. But for me, if I can be transparent about my mother's mental illness, I can be transparent about multiple sclerosis
right.
and the way in which it debilitated her life. If I can be transparent about the family dynamics and the family secrets, and if I can be transparent about me as a professional, as quote-unquote successful, and me being able to overcome the odds and the obstacles that I went through, hopefully my life story can be of edification to someone else so that they can realize that, no does not necessarily mean no. No may
right.
mean maybe not right now, but no does not mean no. So, I just wanted to be transparent about not only myself, but also so many other things in this book, and in book 2 and book 3 that are to come as well, that I want to be able to help just 1 or 2 people. And the responses that I've gotten have been so overwhelmingly positive that, I feel that my job is done. And that's my goal, to definitely continue to reach individuals in any way that I can. Even though the book is about the things that we discussed, I've had so many people reach out to me that I did not realize that were going to be touched in a positive way. I actually had a young man who is a recovering alcoholic. At the time, he was a heroin user and also an alcoholic, and had not sought any kind of medical treatment whatsoever, had not gone to the first AA meeting or anything. He was given my book by actually one of my family members, and once he read the book, he called me. My family member gave him my phone number. She said, "Is it okay to give him your number?" And I said, "That's fine. Everybody has my number." I said, "That's fine." And so he called, and I didn't recognize the number, but I answered it anyways. And he said, "Can I tell you a story?" So he told me about the heroin use and the alcoholism and cocaine as well. And he said to me that the book changed his life. And he had been to, I think, 2 or maybe 3 AA meetings, and he had checked himself into some other place, and he was seeking help. And it was because of my book. And if he said that if I could be as candid and as open about the things that I experienced as a child, as an adult, as a woman, as a Christian, as a professional, to put all of my business in this book. What he didn't know is I got 2 more books coming out with some more business that I'm about to put out. But so he said, if you can put all of your business in this book like this for the world to read, why can't I tell someone about my drug use and my drug addiction? And he said, I just walked right in, and I'm not going to turn around. So a year later, once he, had been clean for an entire year, he called me at that year mark, and I was thinking, wow, that year went really fast. He said, "You know what, Dr. Williams, I've been clean for a year, and I'm not going to stop." So things like that have totally touched because there is no drug abuse mentioning in this book at all. There's not anything that I've ever experienced. But obviously, whatever I said touched him in a positive way, and so I know that I did the right thing to put my business out there like that. So I'm happy that I did. So that's, things like that have sparked me to make sure that I do book 2 and book 3.
Well, see, that's where we come full circle. And that is in your bio, you said you wanted to help others. And I'm of the personal ilk as well, that really we are here to make life better for someone else. I mean, that's why, if everyone took on that standpoint of I'm here to make life better for somebody else, this is what would happen. This is why this whole thing about love changing the world works. If everybody was worried about making life better for somebody else, that means somebody would be making life better for you. So while I'm making life better for somebody else is making life better for me. And it's a chain reaction. People don't get that. They got this hate thing going on and violence and killing and all this, that, and the other. If they only realized, look, do what you can to make life better for somebody else, and ultimately life will get better for you. And see, you did that, and you're going to continue to do that with your books. And so at this point, this is your opportunity to promote. You can say anything with the exception of the dollar amount, but in terms of your phone number, how folks can get in touch with you, how they can get your book, your website, your LinkedIn site, whatever, you can do that now. The microphone is yours. You can promote to the hilt with the exception of a dollar amount.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Well, the title of my book that's currently available is My Mother's Keeper. It is available through Amazon. It is available on Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Zulon Press. It is also available through Christian Books. You can actually find it as well on Google Books in hard copy or in electronic format as well on Kindle. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can also follow me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. I am on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And you can email me. It's probably the best way to contact me. It's my name. It's Dr. Sheila D. Williams at gmail.com. Again, that's Dr. Sheila D. Williams at gmail.com. And I can be followed on Facebook at thestrengthwithinme.com. And that's www.thestrengthwithinme.com.
That's on Facebook?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll direct you to my Facebook promotional page.
Okay. Say it again. www.thestrengthwithinme?
thestrengthwithinme.com.
All right, I'll get on there before the day is over. I'll be linked in with you on the Facebook side.
Okay.
If I didn't do it already, I might have done it already. I'm not sure, but if not, I will before the day is out. Well, I thank you so much for rising early to join us. I have I hate to say the word enjoyed. I mean, I'm trying to look for, I've been challenged and inspired, because when you get into information like this, I want it to move beyond enjoyment. That's my point. Right. It's kind of like, I hate telling the pastor I enjoyed your sermon. It's like, I didn't go there for my joy. I went to, and so I try to get away. So like I told you earlier in the interview, I'm kind of like a wordsmith. So like I hang on words. So there's certain words I try to move away from, and enjoyed is one of them. I think people just kind of say things because that's the easiest thing to say. But the hope is that you've been more than just sitting there enjoying, that you've been challenged and encouraged and inspired and all those different type things of your story. And I laugh when you say people generally tend to look at the end product, have no clue of what it took to get to that end product. It's kind of like in the Bible where they were fussing over who's going to sit on the right and left, and Jesus said, I don't think you want to get this cup. It's kind of like that type deal. I don't know if you want to be where I'm not based on what I had to go through to get here. But if you do, hey, okay. But I mean, a lot of people do see the end result and say, you know what, I want to be that. And that's great if you want to be that. But don't think that it came automatically. Because I mean, regardless of what it is, whether it's a ball player or actress, doctor, whatever, people don't know. They don't know, like the paper, like you were talking about your dissertation. They don't know the dissertation process. They don't know what you had to go through to write a dissertation. The applicant. We had career day at my school yesterday, and a good friend of mine who is a lawyer was sharing with the kids that when she was about to take the bar, she studied 6 months for that one test. That she said, first off, she studied 4 months for the entrance exam, but then when it came time for the bar, that she studied 6 months for that one test. I have kids that won't study one night for the test next day. And so she now says, I studied 6 months for that one test. I said, stop right there. I need you to repeat that. Did you hear her say for that one test, she studied a half a year for that one test? And so people don't realize when you get these various accoutrements and awards and documents and degrees and this, that, have no idea what you had to do to get there. And they think you just kind of popped out your mother's womb with it. And it's not the case. It's really not.
With a cap and gown on.
Yeah, exactly. I came out doctor. Like, okay. But no, you got to put the time and the work in. And that's what people need to understand. So I applaud you, and God bless you. Continue to do what you're doing, because you are changing lives. The book is changing lives. The story is changing lives. The other thing it does, and then, I'm going to let you go. A lot of times people feel like they're the only ones in the world going through something. And they'll read a book like yours and say, wow, I'm not the only one going through this.
Right. That is so true.
And if Dr. Williams can make it, hey, guess what? I can make it.
Right.
And once you've done that, just like that story you just told about the drug addict, that there you go right there. I mean, you can't get much better than that.
Right. Exactly.
So, all right, I tell you what, you're down there in one of my favorite southern cities, because I don't have many. But when I come down to visit my mom, I always have to make that 2.5 hour drive down to Atlanta. I just love that area. What do you call it? And I always make sure, I don't care how many times I go, I have to go to the King Center. Must.
Oh, yes.
Must.
Definitely.
I don't get, and I know that exhibit like the back of my hand, and I still go every time I go down there. It's just something about being in the midst of that area. But I love Atlanta. Have loved it for a long time. And so you have a wonderfully blessed day down there. And
thank you.
You can come back on whenever you get the second and third book done.
I sure will. All
right.
I would love to. Thank you.
All right. Again, have a wonderfully blessed day.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thanks a lot. Take care now.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that brings us down to the end of another reading circle with your host, Marc Medley. The book this morning is My Mother's Keeper. I have a feeling there's a couple of people I know would love to read that one, my mother being one of them. The author is Dr. Sheila D. Williams. On the title of the book, it says Sheila D. Williams, Ph.D. And you heard the story about her mom suffering from clinical depression. Most likely, because she said her mom was an outgoing child up to a point. Most likely something happened in there that shut her down. So in that, even of itself, is like, I just had this thing about something happening to kids, because you only get one childhood. We only get one life, but you only get one childhood. And that's the childhood piece is the shorter of the two, unless, of course, you pass away as a child. But if you don't pass away as a child, the childhood piece is the shortest piece of your life. You're talking 18 years at best. I mean, even the 18, maybe you're talking maybe 12 to 16 is the child piece, because you start developing closer to the adult piece. But okay, let's go 1 to 18. Let's say you live to be 78 or 98. If you subtract 18 from 98, that means 80 years of your life was spent as an adult, and only 18 of them was spent as a child. And it's sad whenever your childhood, you don't get to live it as a child, or something happens to you in your childhood that causes you to be kind of like messed up, or causes you to do whatever it is that you do. Like, you don't really have a childhood. It's almost like erased. Like, you go straight from, okay, baby, to like something happening to you, to like it throws you off, and next thing you know, you're an adult. And as I just said, you're an adult a lot longer than you are a child. I did a podcast the other day, because I do have a podcast as well. Not only do I do this show, but I have a live podcast, the Marc Medley Show. It's on Spreaker. But the last one that I did last Saturday night was on the fact that I would not trade my childhood with the childhood of these kids today for nobody's money. As much as I want to be a millionaire, if somebody said, well, I'll tell you what, you can become a millionaire if you trade your childhood with the childhood of a kid growing up today, would you take it? I wouldn't do it. As much as I want to be a millionaire, I wouldn't do it, because I truly had fun as a kid. I really did. And you can hear it if you follow any of my social media sites. You can go back, you can hear it, the podcast about that whole notion of not treating my childhood, because I had in retrospect and listening to people like I just listened to Dr. Williams, I had a wonderful childhood. I had a blast. I really did.